they're somewhat embarrassed by what happened this evening?
Well, unless they have a good reason, Rena, they should be embarrassed. There's no question about that. Now, I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt right now when we're talking about it, saying that to the average person, it looks like something went wrong. Somebody made an operational decision that went awry. And then they kept at it, though, for hours and hours and hours. And they may come up and they say, we had intelligence saying there are some people in that room, or sorry, in that cordoned off area at Queen and Spadina who were very, very dangerous, you know, who were a threat to some of the leaders who are in our city. They may have to say that, and they may have to take the lumps for it, or it may be a good thing. They haven't done that yet, so they're going to have to come up with some really darn good reason to satisfy not just the lawyers. I'm not talking about, you know, the very sensitive people who want their rights protected every time that something happens. I'm not talking about those oversensitive criminal justice lawyers or the civil rights lawyers. I think that the average Canadian looking at that says, we want to have an answer to that, Rena. We want to know what's going on. And the police have an obligation. They are paid by the taxpayers. They have a duty to uphold the law. And in this case, unless they have a really darn good reason why those people were being held, they weren't upholding the law. They may indeed have been breaking the law by keeping average people in the rain, in the dark, on a Sunday night, out without any reason and without any phone calls. It really is quite stunning. And quite frankly, a lot of people yesterday were willing to give the police the benefit of the doubt. They support the police, as most citizens do. They support the police. They do not support criminal acts like smashing windows, like ruining stores, like scaring clerks in Starbucks, like torching cars in the middle of the street. That's very, not only illegal, it's un-Canadian. On the other hand, I don't think they're going to give them much of a doubt on this one, Rena. So it's a very tough situation, and we're going to have to wait and see what comes out tomorrow.
Look forward to hearing from you again, Stephen. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Rena.
It's now 10:16 and it's 20 degrees. You're watching Toronto's Breaking News, CP24. Of course, we're going to stay on top of the very latest developments in this story. But right now, we want to hear from you. We would like to hear your G20 stories from this weekend. Give us a call. We'll be right back with some more.
The CFL on TSN returns with a Canada Day celebration. The Argos have a new owner, a new coach, a new team, and a whole new attitude. Catch the Argos as they crank it up in Calgary when they take on the Stamps. Argos football new and intense. The CFL on TSN. Argos Stamps. Thursday on TSN.
Got junk getting in the way? Why not clean it up? Contact 1-800-GOT-JUNK and we'll take care of the rest. Our friendly teams will remove your junk from your home or office at a time that's convenient for you. We'll take almost anything, from old furniture and appliances to yard waste and construction debris. Plus, we'll do all the loading and cleanup so you don't have to. Why wait? Call 1-800-GOT-JUNK or book online and remove your junk without getting off the couch.
Good dog. American Standard, heating and air conditioning.
Looking for the ultimate home comfort you and your family deserve? It's easy with Comfort Plus from GM Air 121. Earn up to $1,200 instant cash back, 15-year parts and labor warranty, or low financing. Get the comfort system of your dreams. Call GM Air 121 today.
CP24, Toronto's breaking news.
Welcome back to CP24. Now, just in a few moments, Staff Superintendent Jeff McGuire will be speaking at a police conference. We're going to go live to that in just a few minutes. But right now, let's check in with Stephen LeDrew. Stephen, you have been watching with great interest what's been happening today. And soon enough, you're going to take some questions and some stories from callers as well.
Well, I said yeah, absolutely. But the bottom line, I think, and I'm really glad that the police conference press conference is coming up, because, as I said, right now, it doesn't look good for them. They may have some operational decision, which everybody will look at and say, well, of course. We didn't like what happened, but of course they had a good reason. But we're going to have to wait for that, because right now people are shaking their heads and saying, this doesn't happen in Canada. So, Rena, I don't have the calls, but let's take some calls. Let's see what happens. We have one now from Maria. Maria, you're on CP24.
Hi, good evening.
Hi.
How are you?
Very well. What do you say about this?
I'm so disappointed. Why didn't the police do these blocks yesterday? You saw people moving away from the burning cars and going back to the same place. Why didn't they act like this yesterday? Today they just look like idiots, because this is ridiculous. Whoever organized this, whoever made this decision to block these people on Queen of Scotiabank today, that was really ridiculous. Ridiculous.
Now, Maria, I take it you're not a lawyer.
No.
Well, no, that's good. But I mean, so what you're saying is that it offends your basic sense of justice as a citizen.
Of course. This is unjust to these people. I agree in certain things, like do not go down there to the area where you're not supposed to. If you want to watch things, stay home.
Yep.
Because I completely stayed away from downtown this weekend.
Yep.
It's just yesterday. I think the police should have acted like this and rapidly yesterday, because it's unjust for Toronto to have hospital lockdowns. It's crazy.
Maria?
Those, that were violating, like destroying things downtown. Do not do this to Toronto. It's not allowed.
Okay, Maria, are you willing to give the police a benefit of the doubt and say, okay, let's just wait and see what this presser is and see what explanation they have?
It's not the police. It's whoever is in charge, because they only follow the rules.
Well,
they only follow, they only do what they're told. You understand?
I got it.
So I guess they probably didn't know if the protest or that was going to turn into a protest. So they just acted on whoever told them to act. But
okay.
You could see it's unjust. And to keep people in cages, come on, where do we live?
Okay, Maria, thank you very much for your call. Let's just get to the next call then. While we're waiting for this Metropolitan Toronto Police presser, we are just we're taking your calls. And I just didn't hear that. Justin, you're on CP24. Do you have a comment about this, Justin?
Yes, I do. I've been watching your coverage pretty much nonstop because I live not far from where all the action's been happening. Mm-hmm. And I'm a little bit disappointed by some of the stuff that I've heard from both Stephanie and yourself.
Okay.
In regards to the police.
Okay.
From my point of view, I see a war zone out there. I see, all sorts of destruction and damage. And sure, there's riot cops, and they don't look, very friendly. But on the other hand, when you were speaking to the other people who were calling and telling you that they're there, and when they were asked, why were you there, a lot of these people seem to be sort of action junkies. So,
Justin, I think you're absolutely right on that. I mean, if you see a problem, I'll tell you something. I was at Queen and Spadina last night. I wanted to see who was in the crowd. And I got my assessment of it. I saw it's a problem. Then you get out of there. You stay away from there, because no one walks into a problem. So, I mean, what do you think about the people being detained tonight out in the rain for 3 hours without any phone calls, without any bathroom breaks, and their hands in plastic cuffs?
I agree that it's not a very good visual, but again, like my own feeling in that sort of a situation would be, as much as I can possibly, how would I get out of that situation? I would try my best, to really negotiate with the police or whoever's there and say, look, this is a very scary situation for me, the people around me. I'd really like to get out. And if that has, truly happened, then that's fine. But, I think a lot of these people there with their cameras that are just sort of action junkies are not really, putting through a very good thought process of where they are, what's going on, and the dangers that are around them. And if you put yourself in that kind of danger, then, what can you expect, right?
Justin, I think you're absolutely right, and it's a very good phrase. I haven't heard it before, but you coined it, Justin. Action junkies. Thank you very, very much for your views on that one, for your call. There's lots of people calling in tonight. We have the numbers up. A lot of people are watching. They have this the views of what is right and what is wrong. And that's why we're waiting for the police newser. I think it's very good that the police are having, in fact, a press conference tonight to explain, even though it's 10:24, it can't come soon enough because they owe, I think, Canadians, Torontonians, an explanation as to what happened tonight. There's a shot of the crowd. That is from earlier today. Let's just go to Paul. Paul, you're on CP24. What do you say about what happened tonight?
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. You're on.
Hi. I'm going to have to agree with the last caller in some regards. I think that the protesters, the peaceful protesters, need to disassociate themselves from the violent protesters.
Correct.
I mean,
no one disagrees.
Sorry?
No one disagrees with that.
Right, because, I mean, I went down also as an onlooker to see some of the action. I mean, it's not that I'm an action junkie, but, you know, I like to take part in what happens in Toronto. And as an innocent bystander, having some protesters come up to me and stick video cameras in my face, asking me if I'm an undercover cop, basically, saying, are you a cop? And being on camera by these people, it's annoying. I mean, I can understand why they might feel threatened by the cops, but, I mean, my question to them was, what do you think would have happened in the city if the cops weren't around?
Oh, I think you're absolutely right on that. I mean, the Sid Ryan, if you will, the peaceful protesters, he and his labor group and the other legitimate groups, they have the right to protest. They have the right to march in the street. And in fact, the police were seen helping them. That's fine. But you know what? When the real disturbers, the criminal element, get in there, they should disassociate themselves. And I think, in fact, that by and large, they do that.
Yeah, and then also the media plays a big part in it, right? Because the media gets caught up in it. I remember the Queen's Park riots from 15 years ago when OCAP did their thing there. And, you know, I was there to see it, and I saw the incitement.
Okay, I'm going to have to cut you off. Thank you for your call, because we're going right now to the Metropolitan Toronto Police presser. Here we go.
Everyone for coming on short notice, and I'm happy to speak to you. This evening, we were involved in our policing duties with the G20. As you know, there have been many large crowds that we've had to police, and this occurred again on Queen Street this evening. Our officers were escorting a large group of protesters who were making their way across Queen Street towards Peter. During the time of that escort, we gained significant evidence to suggest that we had members of black bloc type people that involved in the crowd mixed in, and that included people who during the walk actually donned masks, as we saw yesterday, which was the precipitation of the violence that we saw. I'm also advised that we recovered some weapons along the route from unknown sources who had dropped them, but they were also found. So all of this led our officers who have been on the road trying to protect the city very diligently to believe that they had the reasonable grounds, in which they did, to believe that a breach of the peace was going to take place from the people involved in this group, including the people, as I said, that we believed were potentially black bloc type protesters, as well as people who chose not to disassociate themselves from this group, even after they had the opportunity to witness the people being arrested donning masks and activities that were very similar to the type that led to great difficulty yesterday. So our officers did have the lawful right and did so, and in order to prevent a further breach of the peace, they used the resources that they had at the ground to bring this group to a stop, and they were arrested for breach of the peace, and we're in the process of processing all persons within that group. The inclement weather came upon us at some point, obviously, and it was very quickly, and that was a difficult situation for all of us as well, including our officers. After discussion, the breach of the peace, and I suspect part of the calming atmosphere of the weather, the rain brought the danger of a further breach of the peace to dissipate. And after a discussion at the command level, upon the direction of the Chief of Police, all of the people involved in this incident have been or are in the process, but I'm fairly confident that everyone has been released at this point unconditionally and as quickly as we could. You know, I would like to say that the Toronto Police and the citizens of Toronto have been through a very difficult weekend, something that we've never experienced before. And we are very confident and very thankful for the support that we get from the police. This was a very challenging time for our officers as well. Some of the things that they saw that I've related to you were very similar in nature to the things that precipitated the incredible acts of violence and destruction that we experienced in the city yesterday. And certainly our officers did not want to expose the citizens of Toronto or themselves to another event that had the potential to develop from that. So we understand that this has been a very challenging time for the citizens that were involved This entire event has been a very challenging time for the Toronto Police Service on the weekend, and we've done the best we feel that we can to try and support. We're not suggesting that we're perfect. These decisions are made as best as we can at the time with the evidence that we have, things that we're facing. And I support our officers that they had the power to do what they did. And I hope the public can continue to support us, because we cannot face the thugs that have caused the damage in the city over this weekend and allow them to have committed the acts that they have without continuing to show support from the public and recognize that what we do is in the best interest of the public. And sometimes it doesn't always work out perfectly for all, and we recognize that, and I know that you do. But our interest, when our officers hit the street every single day, and particularly through this weekend, as they worked 16 and 18 hours straight in the rain, fighting, was for the public interest and the public safety of our law-abiding citizens. And we will continue to pursue the thugs that started this. And that's the comments I would like to make at the beginning, and I fully expect that you have many questions, and I will do my very best to answer them for you.
What kind of weapons are we talking about here? What kind of weapons?
I don't know the specific weapons. I've been advised that some weapons were found along the route as the officers were following this group.
And were these people boxed in?
They were boxed in, yes, they were.
Is that just a tactic that you use?
That's a tactical maneuver when you're dealing with disorderly crowd, yes, at time, on a moving crowd in particular. When you have to make a decision, if there's a breach of peace that is developing and you're going to arrest them, then it's obviously essential that you box these people in.
Were any of the people detained actually arrested?
They're placed under arrest when they're detained. They're brought individually, one at a time, forward, advised of why they're arrested and what they're arrested for. So in the legal term, they were all arrested.
Charges laid against any of them?
No. As I said to you, they've all been unconditionally released with no charges, which is an option in a breach of the peace situation. In fact, when the breach of the peace is deemed to be no longer a danger, then they are released.
Last night we videotaped a similar tactic where people were boxed in on Eastern, and they were all asking, how do we leave? Just tell us how we leave and we'll go. It was, I think they were having like a dance protest where they were dancing and banging some drums. Nothing violent going on. They were boxed in. I was there, other cameras, and they were held there for, is that a tactic to box them in and not let them leave? Because they really just want to go home.
Well, unfortunately, when we're dealing with disorderly crowds, as you've seen this entire weekend, the crowds are not made up of one single standard type of person. They're mixed. There are people that embed themselves in crowds that make them dangerous to the police and dangerous to the public, and also extremely dangerous to the law-abiding citizens who are within that crowd. And I'm sure that you were out on the weekend, you saw that in many crowds. So the police officers at the time have to make a decision in the best interest of protecting the public safety to make a decision to detain people within the law. And when they make that decision, then they have to move through the next processes. Sometimes they result in discharges, releases, unconditional releases. Sometimes they result in evidence being found where dangerous criminals are extricated from a peaceful public group of people.
On Eastern there last night, that whole group was arrested. I didn't see anybody doing anything violent other than maybe making some noise and keeping up the neighbors.
Okay, well, I can't speak for that, but I can tell you that I have full confidence that if our officers arrested those people and they were transported, that they did in fact have evidence.
But obviously there's been a shift of tactics, because you hardly arrested anybody the first night.
Yeah, well,
and the second night you arrested, what, 550 or something?
No, we didn't arrest 550 in one night, sir. We arrested probably 500 over the course of the 24-hour period. But I think you would agree with me that today was a completely different circumstance than yesterday.
But some would think that maybe today you were rounding them up.
Well, I think some would be incorrect, sir. The people that were arrested for breaches of the peace or criminal offenses, and I believe more than half of the people that were arrested and charged with actual criminal charges, not just breach of the peace.
How did the tactics have to change? It seemed on Saturday that police were almost being accused of, not doing anything, and then today almost, the pendulum swung the other way, and Toronto police and the ICU just went full blast. How did that tactic change?
Well, I would ask you, sir, did you see a difference in the crowds today than you did yesterday? I mean, our reaction is a balanced and measured reaction to what we see. Yesterday we had full-scale riot in this city, and I know you saw that. Today we didn't have that. We did have some breaches of the peace. We did have some unlawful assemblies. We did have some people commit criminal offenses, and we dealt with all of those the best we can. And every time we did that, I'm telling you people, I know that there's some difficulty with the way the perception of things occurred this evening. Everything that our officers did in the Toronto Police Service was for the safety of the law-abiding citizen in this city. and we did the best we could. I'm not suggesting we're perfect. We faced very trying circumstances that none of the citizens in this city have ever faced before, nor have many of the police officers have never faced the events that they did. And they didn't do things maliciously. They did them with the intent of providing public safety for the citizens of Toronto.
But what do you say to those law-abiding citizens who were just there taking a picture? You know, a few reporters, one of our reporters was not allowed to leave for, you know, a good half an hour despite going to every single side. And, you know, a lot of people there were being lawful, but you say you're there to protect them, but they were restrained for going about their business?
Well, sir, they were involved in a group that was deemed to be involved in an unlawful act at that time, a breach of the peace. And I know for a fact that our community relations group spent a great deal of time with the media explaining to them, trying to educate them on what could occur during these types of events, because you, the media, have not faced these events in Canada before. And I know that they were instructed to know that if the media get themselves caught within an unlawful assembly or a breach of the peace situation, they too risk being detained.
Yeah, but this was a situation where you kind of turned around and all of a sudden an exit's blocked off. You turn to the next side and the next exit's blocked off. It wasn't like it was a situation, even for just the average Joe who were out there, it wasn't a situation where you were told, get out now or you could be held. It was, we turned around and there was nowhere to leave.
I understand that, sir. And they used a tactic the officers felt at that time, as I've said, to detain the entire group because of a breach of the peace, because there were people embedded in those groups that they feared would cause serious damage. In that, it's like a net that's thrown, and people do get caught. We're not suggesting, and I can't apologize. I'm not going to apologize to you for the media being caught within that. I think they were dealt with as quickly as they could be. When the officers make a tactical decision, and please keep in mind, as I've said over and over again, this is on the heels of what we faced yesterday. That's not suggesting that's all that drove it, but that's still fresh in everyone's mind, the citizens, the media, and the police officers that were involved. And again, for the best interest of the safety of the citizens. And as this situation has been reviewed at the highest level, and the chief of police made a determination, we determined that the breach was done, and the chief directed that all people be released unconditionally with no charges, no discussion.
What was the feeling? What could have happened if they weren't blocked off? What could have happened? Was there a fear of another?
Absolutely. As I explained to you, sir, there were people that we felt in there. We had evidence of black bloc type people. We had people donning masks in that very group. That's exactly how everything started yesterday, less than 24 hours ago. Exactly. We had weapons that were found. We had people that would not disassociate themselves from those groups. These are split-second decisions that the officers have to make based on the things that we've been through in this city. So I can take some questions from someone else. I just want to share. I'm sorry. Well, the mandate of certainly of the entire weekend for us. One of our mandates obviously was our public safety. We did the best we could with that. But we had an obligation to support the RCMP in providing a safe environment for the internationally protected persons. And we did that, and they were not to get to the fence. And we're not, we worked very hard to do that in a partnership with all of our groups from the integrated security. And we know that the citizens of Toronto also paid a great price for us to be able to do this. But it was done, and we were successful. And that's, in these large events, you're going to have successes, and you're going to have things that don't work out perfectly. And I've said a number of times here, folks, please believe me, we don't think we're perfect. We're not perfect everything we do, but our interest was the safety of the citizens of Toronto.
So the people donning these masks, they weren't charged afterwards with breach of peace?
My understanding is that the people that donned masks were arrested and extricated from that crowd.
So, sorry, so how many people were charged then?
That I'm not certain of. I was given information that there were a few people in that crowd that donned masks just like yesterday when they donned them before they started the riot.
So not everyone was released unconditionally?
No, some people who committed criminal acts or were involved in criminal offenses were charged.
What were the charges?
They were charged in relation to the people that were donning the mask were unlawful assembly or preparing to be involved in an indictable act.
You said you found weapons. What types of weapons?
I was asked already. I'm sorry, I don't know, but I was provided information from the people that along the route of that group, that some weapons were found discarded along the way.
Are some officers from out of town being asked to stay in Toronto for the next couple of days, bracing for more violence?
No, and we have sufficient personnel in place. I'm not going to comment on who's here and who's not, but we believe that we have a plan in place and we have sufficient personnel here to get the City of Toronto back on its feet and continue with safety for all.
Just a few more questions.
Is this over now? Are we expecting? possibly more acts of violence or black bloc type violence?
Oh, well, you know what, I can tell you, so long as we have that expectation, you will have policing that will be there for you. We will not be releasing, will not be reducing our team. Our major incident command system and our structure is staying in place until such time as we're satisfied that we can provide safe environment for all the citizens and the police officers.
What's the average detention time right now on Eastern?
For who?
4 people that have been charged with breach of the peace. How long is it taking you to process them?
I couldn't comment on that.
A lot of people, like 16 hours, people waiting there to be released.
That's certainly possible. It's a very large center, and there are a lot of people there. It takes time to process. I don't know if it's that long. I know that some people were held overnight from yesterday.
They've been given meals?
Of course they're being given meals. Of course they are. Sure, we're treating them, and water. And they're given bathroom facilities, and they're given the opportunity to use telephones. And I'm sure with the large number of people that went through that process, some lengthy delays because of the long time, but absolutely we feed and provide the necessities of life to prisoners.
We've heard a lot of complaints, though, from people who say they're not being treated properly.
Okay, well, I say to them that we have a complaint process in the province, and we have they can make complaints through the police station, or they can go through the independent review process if they wish, and file an independent complaint. And if our officers have committed misconduct, we have processes in place to deal with that. I'm confident that our officers have done the best they can, and but if people have complaints, they know how to file a complaint, and it will be dealt with appropriately.
Okay, thank you. Question,
I'm okay for a minute.
One more. That's the last
question. This is just going back to the incident at Queen and Spadina. What do you say to those people who were held for hours in the rain, given nothing, and some of them were just there, trying to take the streetcar?
Well, I'm not certain that we have people boxed in there that were trying to take a streetcar. The people, as I understand it, were people that were involved in this marching protest. But to those people, I cannot apologize to them, and I won't. I can tell you that it's unfortunate that they found themselves in the situation. It's unfortunate the whole city had to go through what we've gone through this weekend, but the officers had the lawful right to detain them for this breach of the peace. Once that breach was gone, we've taken every step we can, and from the Chief of Police's direction, those people have all been released unconditionally without charges.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody. This conference is now concluded.
Thank you.
Thank you for attending.
Stephen LeDrew.
Well, where do we start, Farah? It's interesting. I mean, the staff sergeant, clearly they're responding to the public criticism tonight that something went amok. He said that they aren't perfect. He would not go as far to say that tonight was not one of those imperfect nights. But there's a lot of questions still to be answered. I mean, he said at one time, yesterday we had full-scale riots. Today, we did not have that situation. And yet yesterday, very few people were arrested. Cars were burning, windows smashed all up and down Yonge Street. And today, 200 people were held in the rain at night for over 2.5 hours, and there was no full-scale riot. So the question, I don't know which reporter asked it, but the question that he was asked, which said, was there a change in tactics, seems to be one that has not yet been answered. I mean, everybody supports the police. No one likes what's gone on in this city with the criminal element over the weekend. But I think that what has to happen is that someone has to question the police, the senior police decisions to do things like what happened tonight. And then he said, that they feared that someone was in that group to cause serious damage. And then they said everybody was released afterwards. So why did it take them 2.5 hours?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. The other thing that I found interesting, Stephen, is that he just ended. The reporter just asked him a question, and I just came from there. Yes. The hair.
Your hair looks great, Mark.
Yeah, thanks. My clothes are still wet. I just came from there, and I just spoke to somebody who was in that, and she did say, in fact, and I believe her, that she was waiting for a streetcar along with several other people. They were just standing there, and then this happened. And there were a lot of people in this group that didn't want to be there, that wanted to get out. I heard a gentleman who was from Ireland who was like, oh, this is Canada. So this is what we're projecting to even tourists that were in there, that this type of thing happens in this country. So I know that Staff Sergeant, the Staff Sergeant Jeff McGuire there that you just heard from Toronto Police said that he didn't think that there was anybody waiting for a streetcar or anybody that maybe wasn't a protester there, but we definitely talked to some.
Yes, and I'm not casting aspersions at all on that person. I didn't hear it, and some people will do anything or say anything to get out of a tight situation. That's human nature with some people. But I mean, if that is proven, This is going to take a long time. This is not going to be a matter, Farah, of just someone making a complaint about police action. This is a very serious, serious issue. The staff sergeant tonight said that yesterday, if someone chose to disassociate themselves from the group, they were not going to be arrested. Well, the evidence we have tonight, Farah, is that people said, you know what, as you say, I was waiting for a streetcar, I was walking home, I was going to a restaurant, I'm disassociating myself from the group, and the police said, well, you're staying here anyway. That is a tactical decision, and it wasn't made by the rank and file. It wasn't made by all the people, and he said the police were out there in the rain. They weren't making the decision either. Somebody senior made the decision, notwithstanding all the evidence, and then the ultimate evidence was that they were all released tonight. So if anybody's there ready to bomb up the New York State building, they were released.
Well, the other thing that we need to mention as well, just to recap on what police said, is that earlier in this demonstration that went down Queen Street, and we saw it here, that was going past Peter and then ended up at Queen and Spadina, there was evidence that police said that there were people donning masks. And again, that's what happened yesterday before the riots broke out. They also found some weapons on the route, which they didn't elaborate. Police Staff Sergeant Jeff McGuire did not elaborate on what those weapons were, but police did let us know that. But mainly, the people who were in this group were breaching the peace, and that's what some of the charges that were laid tonight were about breaching the peace. And
we have to be careful on that. When you said the charges laid tonight, Farah, I don't know where they're laid tonight against people yesterday. I understand that the people that were caught at Queen and Spadina out in the rain were not breaching the peace. They found because they're all released. I mean, Lisa LaFlamme, who we're just looking at the video of her now, she was not breaching the police.
Sorry, let me clarify that. I shouldn't have said charges. I should have said the arrest, because when I spoke to some of these individuals, they said, and you can explain this to me from your background as well, they said when they were arrested, that was the reason that was given to them, that they were arrested, and when they asked why, they said for breaching the peace.
That's fair. That is fair. And if somebody was in the parade or some other gathering yesterday or today, and they had a black balaclava on, or they had a face mask on to hide their identity, and they had a hammer on them. We saw it ourselves yesterday afternoon. We were playing the video over and over. Some young fellow had a hammer and went and smashed the bank building right across the street from here. It's on video. Well, they should be arrested. I mean, there's no question about that. But even when they were arrested, well, they weren't arrested, or they were arrested much later. They weren't kept out in the rain for 2.5 hours. I mean, there's so many questions, Farah.
No, it's definitely a bizarre situation, especially when all these people have now been let go. I mean, we saw lines when we were out there of people just standing there with their hands together in those plastic handcuffs there, and then we saw them afterwards, and they were released holding evidence bags, saying that you know, we were pulled out of this crowd, we were handcuffed, and then they let us go.
And we're seeing the video right now. This is a young man yesterday. His face is covered. He is there for what, 10 seconds? Smashing a window. And that is before, Farah, the police cars were torched. I understand there were 4 cars torched. Is that not right then?
That's right. I saw 2 on Queen Street. I was there as one was actually being torched. I witnessed some demonstrators or rioters or whatever you want to call them, but they were on top of the vehicle, jumping on it, smashing the windows out, taking a piece of paper, crumpling it up, lighting it on fire. There were several people on Queen Street with me that witnessed just that. So there it is. There's the pictures now. This is the vehicle.
And here is one of the vehicles torched. So, I mean, no one, and it's also difficult, we have to be careful of this, Farah, to second guess police in an operational situation. I mean, you know, I'm not second guessing. I know you're not.
No, definitely.
But I mean, people do have a rough sense of justice. As the first caller we had, like, she wasn't a lawyer. She said, I was offended yesterday when people weren't arrested for burning police cars, and I was offended tonight when people were held out in the rain for 2.5 hours. That woman has a sense of justice.
You know, and there is something sometimes that police know. There is intelligence that they can't tell us because they are still investigating. And I was talking to a lot of police on the ground today when we were out there, and they were telling me, you know, we're still investigating. We can't tell you everything, and they can't. Of course they can't. But the question is still today, because we don't have all the answers, as to why some people who had nothing to do with the demonstration were held for hours in the rain, freezing cold, and we don't have the answer to that. Yes, there could have been somebody in that that group of people. There could have been one of these black bloc protesters or people who use that black bloc tactic, you know, wearing the masks and such in that group. We didn't see them, but there definitely could be, and maybe that the police were just trying to get that 1 or 2 or 3 or 5, however many people out.
And you know what? I hope that that is the case and that evidence comes out and they can point to people who were there. I understand that we have lots of tweets on this, but I understand as well that we're going to have the opportunity to speak to Staff Sergeant McGuire and ask some questions, and we have him right now. Staff Superintendent McGuire, thank you very much for joining us. It's Stephen Ledrew from CP24. We heard your press conference. Thank you. And we know it's a very difficult situation. Let me preface my question by saying everybody in Toronto, except for those criminal elements yesterday and today, support the police. Everybody supports the Toronto Police and the Thunder Bay Police and all the other police forces who are here trying to maintain the police. And I bet that everybody agrees with you that it was a novel and very difficult situation. Make no doubt about that. But you said yourself that yesterday there were full-scale riots, and today we did not have that situation. And we're hearing from people, both phone calls and tweets and emails, they're saying, well, we didn't see a lot of arrests being made yesterday for people who were obviously committing criminal acts, whether they're smashing windows, torching cars, going up Yonge Street. And then tonight, with people that you say were released later on, they were kept in the rain for 2.5 hours. Can you help me with that anomaly, if you will, that yesterday it seemed like not enough action was being taken, today too much action being taken, and whether there was a change in instructions?
No, well, there wasn't a change in instruction, Stephen, and I would disagree with you that today too much action was taken. I would agree with what you said in the beginning, and I did say that earlier. Yesterday and today were 2 completely different days, and we faced 2 completely different things, but the element of criminality and the thugs existed on both days. Yesterday exploded on us. Yesterday we were fighting as many fights as we possibly could, and the ability to make arrests at that time was superseded by the need for public safety and the safety of the police officers. So I can tell you that our police officers would have been very happy to be able to make many more arrests yesterday. Unfortunately, the environment didn't allow that. What occurred today is not under any direction, but it was in order, one of our biggest challenges, or our biggest efforts is in crime prevention. And we wanted to be sure, our officers, that we would prevent what occurred yesterday from coming up again today. And as I said earlier, the evidence that we found from this group that was moving had a number of significant indicators that were exactly the same that precipitated the horrendous violence that we faced yesterday. So the officers made a decision, and they made a lawful decision, in my opinion, and we support our officers for the work that they did. I can't say enough about the public support that we've had. You touched on that in the beginning, and I fully believe that the public would support us. Everything we do isn't perfect, but our decisions are made in split second. And like I said, it's all in the interest of public safety. We need the continued support of the public, and I would ask for that. But I also fully support the work that our officers have done. They've been out there 16, 17, 18 hours in a row in the rain and still asked to call upon to do things that no other police officers in Canada have ever had to face, nor have our citizens. So a very difficult weekend for all of us, and I hope that we continue with that support.
Well, there's no question about that. It was a difficult weekend, and I don't think there's any question but that, you know, the people, Torontonians, Ontarians, are going to continue to support the police. But to go back to the way that was dealt with tonight, it's not the rank and file, but it seems that you also said in your press conference that if individuals who were detained chose to disassociate themselves from the group, they could leave. And tonight we're told by people who were in that group for over 2 hours or almost 3 hours in the rain that they tried to show and to disassociate themselves from the group, and that they were met with blank stares. Stephanie Smythe was talking to somebody on a cell phone who said, I was just walking, and he wasn't given an opportunity.
When I said that they didn't disassociate themselves from the groups, even what I'm indicating is that once people started to don masks within that group, and there were some, and once weapons were discarded from people within that group, and there were some, other people, law-abiding citizens perhaps within that group, I mean, didn't make the effort to disassociate themselves from that group, so they became part of the entire group. And, you know, we're not suggesting that they're all criminals in that group. What we're suggesting is that our officers were faced with the potential of a breach of the peace that was existing in their minds. They had the lawful authority to make that arrest of that group, not knowing who may be black bloc within there or other people who want to cause damage, and it was a preventative measure. And as I said, we're not perfect, but and we are coming off the heels of what the city faced yesterday. The officers did what they thought was correct in the right instance, and I support them for that. But upon review, and now that the breach of the peace has gone, probably a lot induced by the weather. It was discussed at all levels, and the chief of police directed that all of those people be released unconditionally without charge, and that's been done. And I just ask that we continue to have the support of the police, but I would say everything that the police have done this weekend has been to provide safety and security for the citizens of Toronto against forces that we have never seen before.
No question about that. And I have a few more questions, and I want you to tell you that with my questions, we aren't challenging, nor are we saying that, you know, you're wrong. I'm just trying to get information out there because we're going to have a lot of people who are saying, well, what about this? What about that? You said the chief of police tonight at the end of this episode asked that everybody be released. Was the chief of police the person in charge of this whole thing tonight? Or was, I mean, I know there's a lot of other police, but was it Chief Blair in charge of this at the start?
Chief of police is in charge of every policing activity that takes place in the city of Toronto. So he is always in charge of the activities that we do. I'm not suggesting that he was consulted at the beginning before the efforts were taken, but his officers on the street are directed to do and make proper informed decisions for the interest of the public safety, and that's what the officers did in this instance. What I'm saying is that as the night progressed with these people that were being detained, it was discussed at the highest levels, and Chief William Blair made that direction through the chain of command, and it was carried down, and we had all persons released as quickly as we could.
No, I understand that. Now, there's another aspect of what you said earlier that I want to make clear. You said that the people were corralled because there was evidence of the black, was it the black bloc there? Everybody was to say, you know, bully for you because that was the right thing to do. And then I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think I understand you saying that those people who were either disguised or had weapons were separated from this group. Is that my understanding? Is that correct?
The information I've been given is that there were people in that group that started to don masks, which was the precipitating factor of the riots yesterday.
Right.
And that's part of a key signature of the black bloc type protesters.
And were they arrested or taken out?
Those people were arrested. They were arrested and removed. But that just because the ones that did it then were removed doesn't guarantee us that there are no others within there. And as I said also, the weapons were discovered along the trail, the path of this group. So there were several significant indicators to give these officers reasonable grounds to believe that they had a breach of the peace that would take place. And again, to protect the safety of the public.
Okay, so I mean, granted, I mean, that seems to be, that's the way the police operate. That is the law of the land. If there's reasonable grounds, then that was done. The people who had the black masks on or had the weapons, they were taken out. It seems there are a lot of police there, and you knew there was going to be a lot of press on this. Why did it take so long then, 2.5 hours, whatever the time was, or almost 3 hours, to go through everybody else? In fact, I understand, and we were watching it on camera, that, in fact, not everybody was questioned. They were just sort of carted off at the end of this.
Well, at the end, under the direction of the chief of police, all persons, as I said, were released unconditionally. Up until we made that decision, the officers were doing what they're expected to do and following that process, and that's interviewing and identifying each individual person, arranging for transportation to the holding center if they're going to be detained, which they were in the beginning. They have to check for their property, and all those items takes considerable time. And with the logistics that we have, we did have some wagons that started to move the people. It just takes time. And would I like it to happen very much quicker? And would I have liked to get those people out of there as quickly, far more quickly than we were able to? Of course I would. We know that there's some people in there now that we would have liked to get out there a lot quicker. Okay. It simply wasn't feasible.
Staff Sergeant, you said it took a long time, and time is our enemy, and I'm out of time. I want to thank you very, very much for being forthright and upfront with all your answers tonight. Thank you very, very much.
No, I thank you, and I thank the citizens of Toronto.
Okay. As I said, they all support the police. So thanks very much. And Farah, back to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Stephen. It's been quite a day, it's been quite a night, it's been quite a weekend, and we're going to have a full recap for you here on CP24, so don't go away, stay with us. We will have the latest on the G20, the riots, and everything you need to know to get to work tomorrow as well. Stay with us.
CP24, Toronto's breaking news.
New Revlon Grow Luscious Mascara helps lashes grow stronger. With a unique formula that complements your lash's natural growth cycle. 96% saw instantly longer lashes.
This is the start of something big.
New Revlon Grow Luscious Mascara.
Saturday, June 26th at Mohawk, the Pepsi North America Cup.
I placed my bet, and now I'm in. That's when the adrenaline starts to flow. Round the turn, and my heart's beating out of my chest. I'm gripping the reins. I'm urging. I'm pushing. My horse hits the wire. And I'm in the winner's circle. That's a rush, baby. That's a thrill.
Join us for the Pepsi North America Cup and Trackside Party Saturday, June 26th. Doors open at 5 p.m. Free parking and admission. For free party tickets, visit NorthAmericaCup.com. Feel the thrill at Mohawk Racetrack.
You gotta bet it to get it.
You know, I never realized how expensive our boys would be.
Ah, I know what you mean.
Between new equipment, power skating lessons, and summer league, it's getting outrageous.
Oh, it's the same with my girls.
Oh, what are they into?
Soccer and after-school shopping.
Tired of high prices? That's why Leon's is having our Honey, They Shrunk the Prices event. We've gone through our entire showroom and shrunk a lot of our low-integrity prices even more. Plus, you don't have to pay for 16 months, interest-free.
I suppose one day we'll miss all this.
We call it super slow motion video. You call it fixing my swing. Canon Power Shot. It's time to imagine what you can do with super slow motion. We call it HD video with full stereo sound. You call it the sweetest thing I've ever heard. Canon Power Shot. It's time for HD video with true-to-life sound.
Always Infinity. With its revolutionary material, it adapts more, absorbs more, and bounces back more than that other pad, helping to make all your period worries disappear. Just like magic. Always Infinity. Change your period experience forever.
CP24, Toronto's breaking news.
From 299 Queen Street West, this is Toronto's breaking news, CP24. I'm Farah Nasser. We're going to have weather for you in moments, but first, our top story. The G20 summit ends in Toronto with police detaining hundreds in the rain for hours at Queen and Spadina.
They're letting them go. They're letting them go. They're letting them go.
About 4 hours after police initially corralled a group of hundreds, they suddenly released them, the wet and weary people. They were released without being charged, and no explanation as to why they were held in the rain for so long. The police action to detain the crowd followed a seemingly peaceful march compared with the violence and vandalism that we've seen on the city streets on Saturday. Some in the crowd at Queen and Spadina were arrested, but witnesses say some arrests simply were because people surrendered themselves just to get out of the rain. Those arrests were loaded on the buses and taken to Eastern Avenue. That's where the detention center is for the G20. Sammy Katz was one of those who was detained in the rain for several hours, and he spoke to us on CP24 by phone while he was being held. He came to 299 Queen West when he was released, and Katz says he was simply taking pictures and says many others were held and they were just bystanders just like him.
It seems that, you know, the only time the message really started to get through to anybody was actually when I called Kamutha from CP24. And when CP24 started calling the media and started calling the police and started calling everybody, that's when things really seemed to start changing on the ground. But, you know, we were still standing in the rain for 2 hours, and, you know, most people were bystanders. They already arrested everybody who was there protesting.
And joining us now from the lobby of 299 Queen West with more people who were detained at Queen and Spadina at CP24's George Lagagenis. George.
Thanks very much, Farah. I've got Tom, Michael, and Robert. We'll start with Tom. Tom, police aren't apologizing for their actions tonight. They say it was necessary, measured response to what they felt was a threat, that there was weapons inside. You were just walking by. You ended up there for 3.5 hours. Yep. Your feelings?
I'm very annoyed. This was totally unjustified and completely... It was not a right thing to do. You do not keep people standing in the rain, in the cold, for hours with no justification. We were peaceful people, just walking by through the scene, taking pictures, and they keep us there.
Michael, your feelings?
Yeah, it's really nonsense. There was maybe 10 kids in the middle of the street and doing kind of a protest thing. Everyone else standing around was just there to watch. Just regular Toronto citizens just down watching what's happening. And the police came from all sides, squeezed us all together, and held us for 3 hours in the rain. It's just not right.
So lastly, Robert, who's lost half of his poppy, what was your experience?
Well, I feel the police are doing the best they can, just following the orders that they're given. I had a lot of good relations with them, but really I think what they're trying to do is group all protesters in together when I think there's some important discussion to be had when the leaders are meeting here to discuss imposing world taxes. I think that something like that is something that Canadians should be interested in and not allow themselves to be distracted by people who want to steal the show with violence.
Okay. Guys, thanks very much for your time. And quickly, Farah, I can tell you about my experience today. I was with my cameraman, John Hanley. We were at a completely different protest. Well, not really a protest. It was a raid, in fact, that was happening at the Toronto Community Mobilization Network at around Queen and Dufferin. Just as many police, maybe even more, a couple of hundred officers. We got caught in the middle of a police line when they told us to fall back, caught with just regular citizens. Different experience, though. Our truck and our camera were caught in there with the regular folks. But as soon as they saw these, well, I don't have mine now, my media pass, they told us it was okay and that we should come out. In fact, they encouraged us. Here it is. They looked for people with these and they told us to get out. So rather than keeping the media in with those, anyone with accreditation was told to get out. Obviously different police tactics too. They weren't looking for the same kind of things, but interesting nonetheless. Back to you.
George, do you still have your guest there? Because I have an important question that we're wondering about. Now, we had a press conference and we had Staff Sergeant Jeff McGuire. He was on with Stephen Ledrew, and he said to Stephen Ledrew that the reason that they were keeping these demonstrators or these people in the public or whoever they were in this group for so long on Queen and Spadina was because they were going through the crowd and interviewing people to find out who they were and that kind of thing. Right. Can you please ask your guests if they were interviewed there by police?
Our anchor Farah would like to know, were you interviewed at any time by police?
No. They didn't speak to us at all.
Not you at all?
No.
And how about you?
No, not at all. Everyone was just milling around inside the police line. Nobody talked to us.
And you?
No, we were never even told why we were there or what was happening at all. We even were asking them what's going on, and they didn't even know themselves.
And I'll ask, were any of you ever searched at any point?
No, absolutely not.
Nope.
No. It didn't seem like they were moving in any particular direction. They were just waiting for their next orders, I guess.
I have a feeling Chief Bill Blair is going to be answering some more questions tomorrow.
I think you're right. Thank you so much, George. Now, while police were holding the crowd at Queen and Spadina, they weren't commenting on why the action was being taken. An explanation was offered afterwards.
What we do is in the best interest of the public, and sometimes it doesn't always work out perfectly for all, and we recognize that, and I know that you do. But our interest, when our officers hit the street every single day, and particularly through this weekend, as they worked 16 and 18 hours straight in the rain, fighting, was for the public interest and the public safety of our law-abiding citizens.
Now, the G20 summit had a big impact on traffic and transit, and those headaches aren't finished yet. The security fence near the convention center remains in place. The teardown is expected to begin on Monday. It could take several days as well. Some good news, though, after some major disruptions to service over the weekend, the TTC, at least, is one thing that should be rolling as usual on Monday.
Of course, for most of the city, the system has continued to operate as normally. Scarborough, Etobicoke, North York. The subway today operated normally, and we're expecting, with the end of the summit today, a return to normal tomorrow morning. Of course, people should stay tuned to CP24 and other news outlets. TTC.ca and our e-alerts will continue to provide up-to-the-moment information, but we are expecting a return to normal service tomorrow morning on all routes, including the subway and surface routes.
Union Station should be back to normal on Monday as well, with regular GO train service and VIA service resuming. So stay with us as we have our comprehensive coverage of the G20 summit. And of course, the fallout on the streets continues.
CP24 weather.
Heavy rain has pushed the water levels at the Don River dangerously high. Wow, the river breached its banks between Bayview and Gerrard. The Bayview extension is shut down near Pottery Road. Some motorists found themselves negotiating in meter-deep water in some parts. And here's a look at the DVP. That's at Dundas. This shot comes to us from our city's rescue cameras. So is this wet weather going to last? Let's find out. We get a look at the forecast now. Let's go to CP24's Kamudha Ramanathan.
Hi there, Farah. Well, we had a stunning day both on the streets as well as up in the skies. Lots of rain, torrential rain rather, falling down in Toronto and parts of southern Ontario. The good news is many of those weather warnings that we saw on Sunday have lifted, and now as we head into Monday, well, the highlights page there, you can see exactly what we can look forward to. Increasing cloudiness is expected. There's also a chance of showers kicking in the latter half of the day. Winds are pretty calm, 30 kilometers per hour. And the UV will be strong, so if you are heading outside, don't forget to slap on a layer of sunscreen because it will be 7 or even higher than that. Now, I will have the full weather forecast, exactly what you can expect and just how much rain will be poking through all this work week. We'll have all those details and more coming up later. Now back to you, Farah.
Okay, thank you so much, Kamutha. More now on the G20 summit. While everyone's attention was focused on the streets, the world leaders wrapped up their two-day summit with a Canadian-led plan to cut deficits and stabilize the world economy. The traditional photo op went off without any hitches. Our Prime Minister wasn't missing in action. That's what happened last year in London, remember? Inside, Stephen Harper stood in front and center moments after drafting a resolution with his counterparts, and they're committing to cutting their deficits in half by 2013 and putting debt loads on a stable or downward path by 2016.
We have arrived at firm targets for advanced economies on debt reduction and reducing debt-GDP ratios. The targets are a 50% deficit reduction by 2013 and a debt-to-GDP ratio that should be on a downward, at least stabilized or on a downward trend by 2016. Now, that said, all leaders recognize that fiscal consolidation is not an end in itself. There will be a continued role for ongoing stimulus in the short term as we develop the framework for strong, sustainable, and balanced growth.
And if you're wondering what happened with that controversial global bank tax issue, well, the G20 has adopted a Canadian compromise on the topic. The countries agreed that taxpayers should not have to pay the cost of banks that fail, but it leaves individual countries to decide how to do that. Harper's American counterparts left the meeting having achieved little on the fiscal issues that dominated the summit. U.S. President Barack Obama thanked his hosts despite the fact that Washington was forced to give ground on European demands for a new emphasis on austerity measures.
I want to thank our wonderful hosts. First and foremost, my friend and partner, Prime Minister Harper, as well as the Canadian people and the people of Toronto for their extraordinary hospitality. Our challenges are as diverse as our nations, but together we represent some 85% of the global economy, and we have forged a coordinated response to the worst global economic crisis in our time.
Obama called the efforts at the G8 and G20 summits a testament to Canadian leadership. Our comprehensive coverage of the protests in Toronto, meantime, continues after vandalism and violence on streets Saturday and Sunday began with an explosive scene outside the G20 Detention Center on Eastern Avenue. Police used to muzzle blast to drive back a small protest group outside the makeshift G20 prison house. Muzzle blasts are non-lethal discharges of high-pressure gas from a firearm, and all this happened after about 100 people marched from downtown to Eastern Avenue and the detention center there. And then later Sunday, protesters reconvened for a peaceful standoff with police outside the detention center. Police agreed to release prisoners if the protesters would back away from that scene. Both sides complied, and a steady stream of detainees was set free. This is Toronto's breaking news, CP24. We will continue our G20 coverage, but we'll also get your 5-day weather forecast, let you know what's up when you're going back to work tomorrow, so stay with us.
The CFL on TSN returns with a Canada Day celebration. The Argos have a new owner, a new coach, a new team, and a whole new attitude. Catch the Argos as they crank it up in Calgary when they take on the Stamps. Argos football new and intense. The CFL on TSN. Argos Stamps. Thursday on TSN.
Battery's dead. Quick! Hand me what's in that glove box.
How's that gonna help us?
It's Ontario Instant Millions. I can harness the intensity as I scratch for a chance to win $1 million in an instant.
Lasers! Come on! Ah, it worked!
Ontario Instant Millions!
Honey, I think it's time for a new car. Something reliable.
Yeah? And fun to drive.
But loaded with tons of features this time.
Who has all that?
Suzuki has all that for an all-in-one price. Get a fuel-efficient SX4 hatchback with 0% purchase financing for 72 months, 0 down and 0 hidden fees for an all-inclusive price. It's loaded with AC, keyless entry, and power package. Own it for $119 bi-weekly. Just sign and go. Get an all-in-one price today at Suzuki.
CP24, Toronto's breaking news. CP24 weather.
Now for a detailed look at our weather forecast, here is CP24's weather specialist, Kamudha Ramanathan. Kamudha.
Hi there, Farah. Well, some wet weather greeted us in downtown Toronto on Sunday. Let's take a look at the Doppler 24 radar and see if that pesky wet weather is going to stick around. Well, you can see the movement of activity right there, that movement that was heading into Toronto. Well, the good news, as you can see, it is moving away from us. Bye-bye to all of that, the thunderstorm activity that we were seeing a little earlier, and that was keeping us from enjoying our last day of the weekend. Monday highlights page there. Quickly, as you can see, increasing cloudiness is expected tomorrow. There's also a chance of showers and also a possibility of thunderstorms. So if you are heading outside, just be prepared for that. Winds pretty mild, 30 kilometers per hour. The UV 7 or possibly higher. So don't forget that sunscreen if you are heading outside. Now look at that beautiful 5-day forecast. Well, beautiful in some parts. A bit of a mixed bag on Monday as well as Friday. But as we get further into the work week, Tuesday, you see the sun nice and shiny there, and sunny, sorry, the sun out. And then Wednesday, Thursday, well, you're going to be competing with a bit of clouds moving in. The good news is temperatures will drop on Tuesday, but as you see, steadily increase towards the latter half of the week. So good news by Friday, yes, there is going to be clouds in our forecast, but temperature-wise, not too bad overall. Of course, we are just really breaking into summer now, so lots of good weather ahead of us and lots to look forward to. Now back to you, Farah.
Thank you so much, Kamudha.
You're welcome.
Remember, we have weather and traffic on our screen all the time, and you can also log on to CP24.com anytime. This is Toronto's breaking news. CP24 police speak after holding hundreds of people in the rain for hours. We're going to have more from that news or for you after the break. Stay with us.
The G20 summit is here, and if you capture breaking news, we want Toronto to see it first. Go to CP24.com to send us your video and pictures. Click on My Breaking News, the G20 through your eyes.
Come on!
No! The robot! It's gaining on us!
Battery's dead. Quick! Hand me what's in that glove box.
How's that gonna help us?
It's Ontario Instant Millions. I can harness the intensity as I scratch for a chance to win $1 million in an instant.
Lasers! Come on! Ah, it worked!
Ontario Instant Millions!
Get out the red and white. It's time to celebrate the savings during Ashley Furniture Home Store's Canada Day event. Choose from $100 off your furniture purchase of $1,000 to $1,499, or $250 off your furniture purchase of $1,500 to $1,999, or $400 off your furniture purchase of $2,000 or more, or get free financing for 24 months. You choose how you want to save during the Canada Day event at your Ashley Furniture Home Store. Great style doesn't have to be expensive.
Will it change how we move? Turn our waste into waterfront? Build a better way? Or will the costs cripple Toronto? CP24 Your Vote. The most complete coverage of the mayoral race. From now to Election Day. Make your vote count. With Toronto's breaking news, CP24.
CP24, Toronto's breaking news.
More now on our top story. 2 days of action at the G20 summit saw tensions run high, and police responded with some tough action at Queen and Spadina late Sunday. We have more now on what police had to say about it.
This evening, we were involved in our policing duties with the G20. As you know, there have been many large crowds that we've had to police, and this occurred again on Queen Street this evening. Our officers were escorting a large group of protesters who were making their way across Queen Street towards Peter. During the time of that escort, we gained significant evidence to suggest that we had members of black bloc type people that involved in the crowd mixed in, and that included people who during the walk actually donned masks, as we saw yesterday, which was the precipitation of the violence that we saw. I'm also advised that we recovered some weapons along the route from unknown sources who had dropped them, but they were also found. So all of this led our officers who have been on the road trying to protect the city very diligently to believe that they had the reasonable grounds, in which they did, to believe that a breach of the peace was going to take place from the people involved in this group, including the people, as I said, that we believed were potentially black bloc type protesters, as well as people who chose not to disassociate themselves from this group, even after they had the opportunity to witness the people being arrested donning masks and activities that were very similar to the type that led to great difficulty yesterday. So our officers did have the lawful right and did so, and in order to prevent a further breach of the peace, they used the resources that they had at the ground to bring this group to a stop, and they were arrested for breach of the peace, and we're in the process of processing all persons within that group. The inclement weather came upon us at some point, obviously, and it was very quickly, and that was a difficult situation for all of us as well, including our officers. After discussion, the breach of the peace, and I suspect part of the calming atmosphere of the weather, the rain brought the danger of a further breach of the peace to dissipate. And after discussion at the command level, upon the direction of the Chief of Police, all of the people involved in this incident have been or are in the process, but I'm fairly confident that everyone has been released at this point unconditionally and as quickly as we could. You know, I would like to say that the Toronto Police and the citizens of Toronto have been through a very difficult weekend, something that we've never experienced before. And we are very confident and very thankful for the support that we get from the police. This was a very challenging time for our officers as well. Some of the things that they saw that I've related to you were very similar in nature to the things that precipitated the incredible acts of violence and destruction that we experienced in this city yesterday. And certainly our officers did not want to expose the citizens of Toronto or themselves to another event that had the potential to develop from that.
Now, the final number of arrests isn't known, but it tops 600. So, with the G20 summit over, no doubt, we're all looking forward to life getting back to normal here in Toronto. I know you are. The TTC had some big service disruptions over the weekend, but expects everything to be operating as usual Monday morning. The same goes for GO Transit, which experienced service disruptions, and Via Trains, which didn't serve Union Station over the weekend. There will still be traffic restrictions near the downtown core, near the convention center, because of that security fence. This is Toronto's breaking news, CP24. As we mentioned, the G8 and G summits are now over. When we return, CP24's Stephen LeDrew is going to look back at this weekend here in the city, which will never be forgotten.
Closures, confusion, conflict. When G20 impacts your life, CP24 is ready. In-depth coverage from the studio to the streets. Toronto's G20 station, CP24.
Saturday, June 26th at Mohawk, the Pepsi North America Cup.
I placed my bet, and now I'm in. That's when the adrenaline starts to flow. Round the turn, and my heart's beating out of my chest. Grip in the ring. I'm urging. I'm pushing. My horse hits the wire. And I'm in the winner's circle. That's a rush, baby. That's a thrill.
Join us for the Pepsi North America Cup and Trackside Party Saturday, June 26th. Doors open at 5 p.m. Free parking and admission. For free party tickets, visit NorthAmericaCup.com. Feel the thrill at Mohawk Racetrack.
You gotta bet it to get it.
New Revlon Grow Luscious Mascara helps lashes grow stronger. with a unique formula that complements your lash's natural growth cycle. 96% saw instantly longer lashes.
This is the start of something big.
New Revlon Grow Luscious Mascara.
Got junk getting in the way? Why not clean it up? Contact 1-800-GOT-JUNK and we'll take care of the rest. Our friendly teams will remove your junk from your home or office at a time that's convenient for you. We'll take almost anything, from old furniture and appliances to yard waste and construction debris. Plus, we'll do all the loading and cleanup so you don't have to. Why wait? Call 1-800-GOT-JUNK or book online and remove your junk without getting off the couch.
165,000 calls every day. But we always treat you as a person, not a number. So, how can we help? American Express. Realize the potential.
CP24, Toronto's breaking news.
Can you hear me? You want us to talk? We're right here.
Saturday afternoon on Queen Street, and the G20, as you know, has generated a lot of negative attention on the streets about the story from inside the summit. CP24's Stephen LeDrew is watching all the political happenings. Stephen.
Thank you very, very much, Farah. Well, CP24 had a very exclusive interview this morning with Dimitri Soudis, who's the Prime Minister's communications director, and he told us, when I asked him, I said, what do you want to achieve this weekend? He said, well, the Prime Minister has very much an economic agenda, and he had the agenda of maternal and newborn health care and a few other matters which are relatively minor. And he said the end of it, he wanted to have Canada not only deal with the recovery of the world on a fiscal basis, but also for Canada to be put on the map in a better way. And I think, by and large, the Prime Minister could look back and say, yeah, we did that. There's no question about that. He got his maternal and newborn initiative through. The other countries, some of them did not contribute as much as others had hoped, but it is on the world agenda, and it is going to save literally hundreds of thousands of lives. He did get all the other nations to agree to cut the deficits by 2013 in order to stabilize the world economy. The President of the United States said that he will table deficits over the medium and long term. He said he's not rushing to the door, but he understands that while his economy needs stimulus, the United States cannot borrow and buy their way to prosperity, as he put it. There is also a lot of work done on the concern of other matters with the finances. We can't really go into them all now, but the other good thing about summits is that it was in Toronto. It was in Toronto. The world leaders were all here. They all came and left. There were riots on the streets, but they all left in peace. There's no question about that. So Canada is on the map. China depegged its yen. So there's lots of good things. And I think that Torontonians should look back on the weekend and say, you know what? It was a pretty good deal, and they should be proud of themselves. There's going to be a few things that have to be worked out with what happened on the streets. But by and large, the Prime Minister did put Canada on the map. So that's the way I think about it, Farah.
Okay, thanks so much, Stephen.
You got it.
Always love getting your perspective. Thank you. This is Toronto's breaking news, CP24. What a weekend it's been here in Toronto, and I'm sure we're going to be talking about it with you over the next few weeks and months to come. Here's a look at this G20 weekend in Toronto.
Protesters have approached Queen. This is a very different feel than the tense moments that we saw yesterday.
Those are called black bloc protesters. Some groups have no problem tossing things at police.
This is live coverage of a protest that has taken over Queen Street.
You can see from your vantage point with the Starbucks there, and where they've smashed the windows at our Starbucks. You can see them in action, hurling chairs, smashing windows, and taking off. The black bloc.
The vehicle is in full blaze. It is a police cruiser.
Basically, the city is in a form of lockdown.
All the buildings have security guards on the inside, but most of them have sustained damage.
We never have incidents like this, and I don't believe there's any explanation for it at all, other than that people came here deliberately to commit this kind of act.
CP24, Toronto's breaking news.
Got junk getting in the way? Why not clean it up? Contact 1-800-GOT-JUNK and we'll take care of the rest. Our friendly teams will remove your junk from your home or office at a time that's convenient for you. We'll take almost anything, from old furniture and appliances to yard waste and construction debris. Plus, we'll do all the loading and cleanup so you don't have to. Why wait? Call 1-800-GOT-JUNK or book online and remove your junk without getting off the couch.
At Master Mechanic, we build long-term relationships with people and their cars.
I love my Master Mechanic. I never go anywhere else.
Why not start a relationship with your Master Mechanic today?
Master Mechanic, you talk to the mechanic.
The Queen's Plate, the most prized jewel in the Canadian Triple Crown. More than a horse race, it is the most enduring icon in Canadian sport. Draped in 150 years of royal tradition, it truly is a gallop across history. Join us Sunday, July 4th at Woodbine Racetrack as we welcome Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II for the 151st running of the Queen's Plate. For information, visit queensplate.com. The royal tradition continues.
Fun day trips with Walmart.
Okay, we're all set. Cooler, drinks, check.
I'm thirsty.
Lunch, check.
Daddy, I'm hungry.
Sunscreen, check.
I'm hot.
Camera, check.
Get everything you need for fun day trips from Walmart at unbeatable prices. Check. Walmart. Save money, live better.
At Master Mechanic, we work hard to build our customers' trust.
Yeah, it's their honest approach that keeps me coming back.
Master Mechanic, we're all about customer relationships.
Master Mechanic, you talk to the mechanic.
CTV News with Andrea Case and Tom Hayes.
Good evening. The summit, it's over. However, the showdown between demonstrators and police continued tonight.
But in the protest, many innocent bystanders were in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Dozens spent a miserable few hours being detained while standing in the rain and boxed in by police with nowhere to turn. Now, we begin our G20 coverage tonight with CTV's Michelle Dubé, who was stuck right in the middle of the mayhem and came this close to being arrested herself. Hi, Michelle.
It was close there, Tom. We were stuck and we were live on the air as the dramatic moments unfolded. And after witnessing all that violence and destruction in the downtown core yesterday, there were fears that the situation could take a dangerous turn. It didn't get violent, but people found themselves in a situation they will never forget.
For yet another day, an all too familiar scene in Toronto, protesters took to the streets to speak out against the G20. The group rallied by the hundreds. People even joined along the way as the crowd headed west on Queen Street to Spadina. It's at that point the seemingly peaceful protest took a dramatic turn. Police in tactical gear flooded the intersection by the hundreds, forcing the majority of the crowd north. In a matter of minutes, they were boxed in from all sides, unable to go anywhere. One after another, police started to make arrests. A CTV cameraman was among the arrested but was later released. This as the crowd, unable to move, grew anxious. There were tears, frantic calls home because people who merely stopped to have a look, innocent bystanders, found themselves caught in the commotion.
I guess we were both curious to see what was going on, and next thing we know, I mean, we just couldn't move.
Yeah. Jason Furman and Alan Spector had just come from watching a World Cup game.
We were thinking, how am I going to get to work tomorrow? Yeah. How was I going to call my boss tomorrow and say I got detained?
They were both released along with our news crew, but so many others spent hour after hour standing stuck in the pouring rain while police continued to make arrests. The impression was that everyone was going to be arrested until just before 10.
Everybody says Canada's the best in the world, but I don't think so anymore. Things have changed.
They just sort of boxed us in at the intersection and held us there for 4 hours. And then it started raining and everyone was pretty miserable.
It was an ordeal for many, frustrated and struggling to understand why.
And on a personal note, as a reporter, it was something I will never forget. A young woman turned to me while we were boxed in, and she was just crying out for help to get out, but there was nothing we could do. We were stuck ourselves. Now, we were lucky. We didn't have to stay for the full 4 hours because we made some phone calls and we flashed these media passes and we were escorted out, but obviously a lot of people had to stay for a long time outside, and it's just torrential rain out there tonight. But certainly, Tom, Andrea, quite a weekend here in the city of Toronto.
Thank you, Michelle. And late tonight, police held a news conference at police headquarters on College to offer an explanation. And we are joined now live by CTV's Galit Solomon, who was there and took it all in. Galit, what did police have to say?
Well, Andrea, Staff Superintendent McGuire was the one who addressed the Toronto media about an hour ago here at police headquarters. He told us that the officers who were on scene on Queen Street during that protest had every reason to believe that things were going to turn violent, and they were not going to take that chance. Let's take a listen to what he had to say.
Our officers were escorting a large group of protesters who were making their way across Queen Street towards Peter. During the time of that escort, we gained significant evidence to suggest that we had members of Black Bloc type people that were involved in the crowd mixed in, and that included people who during the walk actually donned masks, as we saw yesterday, which was the precipitation of the violence that we saw. I'm also advised that we recovered some weapons along the route.
Now, about 200 people were arrested on Queen Street earlier tonight during that protest. They were all released. No charges were laid. And we asked the staff superintendent whether he wished to apologize. He said no, and he added, it's unfortunate those people found themselves in that situation, but police had to act in the best interest of the public. Andrea?
Thank you. CTV's Galit Solomon is reporting live from police headquarters. Well, let's move on to our next story. Tom?
Well, the temporary detention center became one of the hot spots when police led a peaceful protest right to the jailhouse doors.
Protesters wanted those detained released, but at some point the mood changed and police moved in.
CTV's Naomi Parnas was there throughout the day. Naomi, I'm sure at some point you probably couldn't actually believe what you were seeing.
Oh, it's been a wild day here. It's gone from quiet to chaos in just a few minutes. And I'll give you an update. I just got off the phone with the integrated security unit. They tell me the latest numbers are that over 600 people were arrested over the weekend. There are still people here tonight camped outside this prisoner processing center waiting for their family and friends to come out. People who they say were illegally detained. And that's exactly how this whole day began. Like so many protests in the last few days, this one began peacefully. About 100 people marched to the prisoner processing center, upset about what they say were the arrests of hundreds of innocent people.
The people who are getting arrested, the people who have been trampled by horses, the people who have had their skulls cracked by batons, were not the people who were breaking things. They were not the people who were setting things on fire.
Quiet protest quickly turned into a scene of chaos. Police descended on the crowd and wrestled this woman into a car. Then several loud pops rang out. Police say they were muzzle blasts containing individual applications of tear gas. Police yanked this man, believed to be a member of the Black Bloc, out of the shocked crowd. Hours later, protesters arrived on bikes and did a sit-in on the road, asking for people to be released. Police asked them to move and gave them 5 minutes to leave. Riot police got ready.
Please leave now or you will be arrested.
After a tense standoff for over a half hour, police agreed to let more people go if the crowd cleared the road. They did, and the situation became calm again. A steady stream of people who were arrested have been released throughout the day to the sounds of applause. Many described their cells as cold with very little food and water.
I remember hearing people have to scream to go to the bathroom and things like that because there were just not enough.
Those released also say many inside have been severely injured. Many of the people released weren't charged with anything. They were told by police they were held to get them off the streets. This old film studio, now the temporary detention center, has shot many movies in the past, but this real story playing out inside is likely the biggest blockbuster yet. And we don't have exact numbers, but it's very possible that about 100 people were released from this temporary prisoner processing center tonight. And someone who came out actually told me he thinks the only reason police are letting them go is that the jail is actually full. A lot of people have talked about the fact that the cells are like cages. They've come out crying, hugging their family and friends, desperately looking for food. They tell us the story that's going on inside that jail is a story that will continue to be told for weeks. Many are extremely upset about the way they've been treated and the fact that many say they were arrested for the wrong reasons. They say they are innocent, and someone tonight even told me she's considering suing police for the way she's been treated here. So again, this is certainly a story that we'll continue to be talking about in the weeks to come. Reporting live, I'm Naomi Parnas. Now back to the desk.
Thanks, Naomi. We'll have more G20 news on the way, but right now, Dana Levinson joins us with some urgent weather information. Dana.
Thanks, Andrea. Well, tonight it looked very much like what we call the flash flood. A downpour hit the city and did not let up for hours. A thunderstorm warning was issued, but within an hour or so, that was canceled. Let's take a look at some of the flooding of the storm that was caused. Reports of over 50 millimeters of rain. That's close to 2 inches fell within an hour. Check out the DVP tonight. The Don River is considered dangerously high along the parkway south of the Baby Bloor exit. A couple of our news crews were out on that specific highway. Tell us that they drove southbound. It's already breached many spots and flooding the shoulder. Also, a high water level alert has been issued for the city of Toronto, meaning all lakes and rivers have the potential to overflow. You should stay away from the water's edge. And Lakeshore Boulevard between Jarvis and Spadina also closed due to flooding on the street. Police have asked that people stay away from that area as well. I'll have more weather details coming up later on in the newscast.
Dana. Well, there have been more than 600 arrests so far.
Wow, yes, an overnight sweep was followed by a dramatic raid on the residence rooms at the University of Toronto. CTV's Galit Solomon returns with that story tonight. Galit?
Tom, Andrea, about 70 people were arrested at the University of Toronto earlier today, both men and women, mostly in their 20s and 30s.
I was protesting against the G20 and I have the right to protest, as we all have.
One by one, they were escorted out of a student residence building on Bancroft Avenue. The building belongs to the University of Toronto. About 70 people were arrested in there this morning. They had items police call suspicious.
Currently, items seized have been bottles with unknown substances, black clothing, bricks, bats, sharpened sticks, items you don't need for a weekend in Toronto.
I don't know why, guys. Back up. I was sleeping right there. Back up. We cannot protest peacefully.
Hey, I did nothing wrong. We rushed into the house. It took me by the neck,
we're just sleeping.
Floor, kicked me in the face, kicked me in the back.
Some of the people arrested had a phone number written on their bodies, possibly for legal counsel. And representatives from the Canadian Civil Rights Association were on hand taking notes. Every person that is being arrested is being escorted by a police officer. Their hands are cuffed. In some cases, their feet are cuffed as well. And the officer that is escorting them carries a bag that is filled with their belongings. And this bus is going to be heading to the Eastern Detention Center.
Let us go! Let us go!
The number of arrests made keeps changing. It began last night. 150 people were arrested during a riot outside the Novotel. Another 30 arrested at a street party on Queen. Police won't say whether they were tipped off about the arrests at the university. Now, numerous arrests, or rather charges, were laid in connection with the arrests that we have seen over the last 24 hours. They include assault peace officer, and breach of peace. And police are now also asking the public to help out if they know of an individual or several individuals who either encouraged violence or took part in it over the last 48 hours. Reporting live, I'm Galit Solomon. Now back to Tom.
Thank you, Galit. Now, police were also on high alert today for threats coming from under the streets. Sewer covers on Queen Street and throughout downtown were being welded shut today. It was the latest security measure in Toronto. Now, this was prompted by phone calls from security guards. The guards were keeping a watch on Bay at Yonge and Queen last night. That's when they saw, believe it or not, young men jump out of the sewer holes and into the streets.
They quickly called the police, and in about 2.5 minutes, there was 50 cops here. They were able to round up the 4 guys. I think one had gotten away.
Police now face something of a mystery. They're pondering this one. Were the underground sewers being used as an escape route, or were they being used to launch attacks in the protest zone.
And in a city and a nation captivated by violent demonstrations, U.S. President Barack Obama sent his best wishes to Canada as the G20 summit wrapped up.
I want to thank our wonderful hosts. First and foremost, my friend and partner, Prime Minister Harper, as well as the Canadian people and the people of Toronto for their extraordinary hospitality. The G20 leaders.
He went on to say the summit made important progress towards fixing the global economic crisis. Obama says their deficit reduction agreement proves that the G20 can bridge their differences.
Very tough.
Meanwhile, away from the meetings, the leaders' wives gathered today for lunch at the CN Tower. Dubbed the Women of Distinction Luncheon, it was hosted by Lorraine Harper. Invited to the event were several accomplished Canadian women, including astronaut Julie Payette and Olympic medalist Joanne Rochette and Silken Lawman. And almost as quickly as the summit started, it's now over. It's tough to see from this distance, but the motorcades pulled away from the Royal York Hotel this afternoon, taking world leaders to their jets for the flight home.
To the numbers now. Pick 3, 193.
And pick 4, 2300.
Stay with us. More news coming up right after the break.
Fun day trips with Walmart.
Okay, we're all set. Cooler, drinks, check.
I'm thirsty.
Lunch, check.
Daddy, I'm hungry.
Sunscreen, check.
I'm hot.
Camera, check.
Get everything you need for fun day trips from Walmart at unbeatable prices. Check. Walmart. Save money, live better.
Will your mortgage strategy stand up to the bank's interest rate increase this year and beyond? Call or visit Canada's Mortgage Brokerage of the Year and pay off your mortgage faster. monstermortgage.ca, giving you the facts your bank won't tell you.
Saturday, June 26th at Mohawk, the Pepsi North America Cup.
I placed my bet, and now I'm in it. That's when the adrenaline starts to flow. Round the turn, and my heart's beating out of my chest. I'm gripping the ring. I'm urging. I'm pushing. My horse hits the wire. And I'm in the winner's circle. That's a rush, baby. That's a thrill.
Join us for the Pepsi North America Cup and Trackside Party Saturday, June 26th. Doors open at 5 p.m. Free parking and admission. For free party tickets, visit NorthAmericaCup.com. Feel the thrill at Mohawk Racetrack.
You gotta bet it to get it.
There's a place I know in Ontario where the sea lions kiss, so the story goes. It's amazing shows and friendship code. Everyone loves Marineland. You'll be spending, diving, and soaring high. I rode a coaster ride, we're flying to the sky. Now you know what you say when you leave here today. Everyone loves Marineland.
Some call him despicable. Fire! They call him Dad.
It was his idea. What?
Steve Carell, Despicable Me.
Did you brush your teeth? You did not.
In 3D, July 9th.
Closed captioning of this program is brought to you by Can't Be Tamed, the new release from superstar Miley Cyrus. Can't Be Tamed, in stores now.
Dana Levinson joins us now. And Dana, shocking weather this evening. You know, we saw poor Michelle and Galit and
drenched.
Naomi out in the rain, taking one for the team, and those poor protesters out there for hours, or just passerbys, just people who just got caught up in it all, in that rain.
Yeah, definitely. It was ultimately like a torrential downpour, or what we call a flash flood. Over 50 millimeters of rain just poured down in just about an hour's time. That's close to 2 inches. Let's show you right now what the city of Toronto was looking like tonight. Check this out. Unbelievable. Tom was just talking about the cars that were stuck, literally hydroplaning through the streets of Toronto. So we have lots of flood warnings and watches throughout parts of the city tonight, particularly through the Don Valley Parkway area, and also on Lakeshore Boulevard between Jarvis and Spadina we were just talking about. Let me show you what we've been tracking the whole evening, there has been this line of thunderstorms that has come in from the area closer to Detroit, and it made its way through Windsor, where we were looking at tornado warnings and watches throughout southwestern Ontario today. All those watches and warnings dissipated, and then we saw some thunderstorm cells move through as well, and that's when we started to see the heavy downpour into the Toronto area tonight. Now, this is going to be the story. As this cold front actually rips through in the overnight hours, we're actually looking at more thunderstorm activity in the overnight hours tonight. But the big story this week will be the forecast. Tomorrow will be considered warm. The humidity will continue. But check out Tuesday, everybody. Temperatures will literally hover around 19 degrees, well below seasonal indeed. And right now we're looking at temperatures hovering around 19 degrees in Cottage Country, 20 down to Oshawa and Pickering. And through the Greater Toronto area, we're sitting at a comfortable 21 degrees. But again, we're still feeling the rain out there. We could see the thunder showers continuing throughout the overnight hours. 20 degrees tonight, 26 tomorrow, feeling more like 32. Pop-up thunderstorms are expected throughout the day, very isolated in nature and non-severe through the Greater Toronto area. Check out your 7-day forecast. Looks just like this. We cool down significantly by Tuesday, and we stay below seasonal for a few days this week, but a lot of sunshine and low humidity. But then by the weekend, we're back up to warm temperatures, feeling closer to 32 or 33 by Saturday.
Thanks, Dan. I don't know if you could hear all the chatter going on behind you there, but lots of Leaf talk.
Well, you know, I've been downtown, right? I haven't heard a thing. What's going on, Sunil?
Well, they picked up a second-round pick. They made a trade.